Hi, I'm Chris Mangus. I am a Habitat Pro volunteer with Maumee Valley Habitat for Humanity. We're excited that you've chosen to join us in supporting Project Playhouse. And this afternoon, we're going to spend some time and show you and your team how to build and assemble a playhouse. Before we start, I want to share just a few thoughts. First, we are building these playhouses, so this is essentially a construction site, which means personal protective equipment is required. At a minimum, safety glasses and closed-toed shoes are required at all times since we will be using power tools and dealing with heavy parts. You may also want to wear gloves when handling the larger panels to prevent slivers. However, please don't wear the gloves when using power tools to eliminate the potential of wrapping your fingers in the screw bits. When you get to your workstation, you will note that all the parts have been provided, so you won't need to make anything. In addition, each station has all the fasteners and all of the required tools provided to paint, decorate, and assemble the playhouse. There will also be a Habitat Pro like me assigned to each workstation, so if you have questions, please ask, and we'll be more than happy to help. Next, you will notice most parts have been pre-drilled. Each assembly step requires a specific fastener size, so please be certain to use the correct screws in the right place. Also, we ask that you don't overdrive the fastener. These two steps are important to prevent any screw tips from breaking through on the inside, which would be a hazard to the ultimate recipients of these playhouses. Lastly, all of the wall panels have a rounded edge on the windows on one side. These rounded edges should face the inside of the house when assembling the wall panels. With those thoughts in mind, let's get started. We'll begin with proper placement of the playhouse base. The base must be safely blocked on all four corners so the finished playhouse can be easily moved from the assembly site to the loading site onto a truck using a pallet jack and forklift. Be sure the base is stable and solid on all four corners using the blocks provided, leaving enough room for the pallet jack entering from the end. The base has built-in cleats which accurately position the wall panels onto the base. Begin by attaching a side panel with the left and right edges flush with the edges of the base. Next, select the front or back panel and position it such that the edge of the panel overlaps evenly on the installed side panel. Make sure your assistants are keeping the panels secure and straight when driving the 2-inch fasteners into the base. Once two panels have been installed along the base forming a corner, it's time to install a corner cleat. Position the corner cleat inside against both panels, maintaining the alignment and consistent overlap from bottom to top. Using the pre-drilled holes as a guide, begin installing the screws through the exterior of the two panels into the cleat held in place by the assistant installer. This process will be repeated for the remaining walls and interior support cleats. Just remember, the side walls are aligned flush with the edges of the base, and the front and rear panels overlap the side panels. Now you will install the exterior corner trim. The corner trim pieces are pre-drilled for proper screw locations. These pieces are positioned flush with the bottom of the walls at the lower end, and the wider portion of the corner trim should rest along the front and back panels. Repeat this process for all four corners. Next, install the horizontal gable trim at the top of the front and rear panels. This is done by resting the ends of the part on the previously installed corner trim flush with the left and right edges and fastened from the inside of the playhouse. It will help tremendously to have one person inside the playhouse to do the fastening and one outside to aid in positioning. After the horizontal gable trim has been installed at the top of the front and rear panels, place a piece of masking tape on the inside of the gable trim between the gable trim and the gable panels in the event that the roof has to be removed for transport. Then install two gable panels on the front and rear wall panels. Please note that the gable panels are color-coded orange and green. The green panels should be mounted on your right facing the wall panel and the orange on the left. This allows the finished edge of the plywood to face the outside of the playhouse. These panels are pre-drilled for correct screw location and should be positioned with the outer edges flush with the edge of the side wall panels. Once the gable panels are installed, install the ridge beam between the peaks of the front and rear gable panels. Please note the ridge beam should be only high enough that the edges come flush with the angle on the gable panels. Installing the ridge beam at the very peak of the gable panels will create a fit issue at a later point when the roof is installed, so please use caution in positioning this part. The gable panels are pre-drilled at the top and fasteners are driven from the outside into the ends of the ridge beam. Once the ridge beam has been installed and fastened at both ends, install the vertical gable trim piece. This is again installed from the inside, engaging on the outside to correctly position the part. Repeat this same procedure for the rear vertical gable trim. The next step is to install the completed roof panels. Install those roof panels one panel at a time. Since these panels are heavy, this will be much simpler if a minimum of 2 people are engaged outside the playhouse and 1 person is inside to help position the panel. Each roof panel assembly should be located such that the roof panel cleats fit between the gable panels on both the front and back and pushed as close to the ridge beam as possible. Some jockeying may be required to achieve the proper position, so don't be afraid to ask for help on this step. Once the first panel assembly is in position, fasten it through the pre-drilled holes along the top of the gable panel. Roof panel assembly is covered in a separate assembly video. Please note though that the roof panel assembly can be done by other members of your team while the previous assembly steps shown here are being completed. Once the roof panels have been installed and fastened, attach the medallion at the peak to cover the joint in the roof scallops. Hang in there, the heavy lifting is done, literally. The next steps are to mount the window trim, door frame trim, and assemble and install the door. The window frames and door trim are mounted from the inside. As before, it is very helpful to have 1 person inside the playhouse attaching the fasteners and 1 person outside positioning the parts. Specific to the window frames, note that one side has rounded edges. The frames should be mounted such that the rounded edges face away from the wall panel. The door frame is installed in the same fashion, paying particular attention to the fact that the door threshold trim is wider than the other trim parts, so be sure this piece gets located underneath the door opening. To assemble the door, attach the top and bottom trim pieces flush with the panel edges from the back side of the door through the pre-drilled holes in the door panel. Repeat the same process for the vertical pieces. Lay the door panel flat with the back side up and attach the last short piece of trim to the back side at the top, making sure the trim is flush with the door panel. Then stand the door panel up on its bottom edge and attach the mantle using the pre-drilled holes. To mount the door catch, lay the assembled door panel on its back side and mount the magnetic catch and block on the door right-hand trim and the catch plate on the trim adjacent to the door. To mount the door hinges, leave the assembled door panel laying on its back and measure and mark down 6 inches from the top edge and up 6 inches from the bottom edge on the left door trim. Position both hinges so that the center hole is at the 6-inch mark. Hold the plate of the hinge against the left edge of the door and install the screws. Like the roof panels, the door can be pre-assembled while the main structure of the playhouse is being constructed. Bear with me, just 2 steps left. To mount the door, position the panel roughly in the center of the door opening from left to right and put a shim of approximately 1/4 inch beneath the door panel. With an assistant holding the door in position, mount the top hinge to the wall panel using only the middle screw. Align the door panel so the gap on the hinge side is consistent from top to bottom and mount the center screw in the bottom hinge. Give the door a trial open and close, being sure that nothing binds, and then install the remaining 2 screws in each of the top and bottom hinges. With that final step, you and your team have successfully completed a playhouse for Maumee Valley Habitat for Humanity. We thank you for watching and we look forward to seeing you and your teams on build day. Thank you very much.